Okay, this is chapter 4, questions 17, 18, 21, 27, and 32. Question 17 says exact exponential growth. Maria is given a savings bond at birth. Her bond is worth $500 and earns interest at 7.5% every year. That means you multiply how much it is times 0.1075 each year. Find the value of the bond at the end of 1, 2, and so on up to 10 years. So basically, you're going to make a table on your paper. You're going to put 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. At 0, it's worth 500. And to find out what it's worth at 1, you take 500 and multiply it by 1.075. That gives me 537.5. That goes in year 1. To find out what goes in year 2, you take 537.5, multiply it by 1.075. That gives you 577.8125. That goes in year 2. To find out what goes in 3, you take 577.8125 and multiply it by 1.075. So you keep multiplying by 1.075 all the way until you get to the 10th year. In B, it says plot the value against the year. So what they want you to do is go to stat edit and put 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in L1 and put the numbers that you got in L2, and then make sure your stat plot 1 is on and it's L1 and L2, and plot the years versus how much it's worth, and then connect those points with a curve. So sketch your scatter plot and connect it. C says take the logarithm. So again, we're going to go to L3, and in L3 you're going to highlight it and put the log of L2 in there, and you're going to plot. So you're going to go stat plot and turn off plot 1, turn on plot 2, and make sure that your plot 2 is L1 and L3, and you should get a linear, so it should look like sort of a line. So sketch that graph. That will be years as your x-axis and the log of the worth as your y-axis, meaning L1 and L3. We go to number 18, exact exponential growth. Fred and Alice were born the same year and each began life with $500. Fred added $100 each year but earned no interest. Alice added nothing but earned interest at 7.5% annually. After 25 years, who had more money? Fred gets $100 a year. So in 25 years, you can see how much he added and then get his total amount. Alice is using the 7.5 interest each year that we got in problem 17. So if the data is still in your calculator from problem 17, then let's do stat calc 8 of L1 and L3. Save that in Y1, and then so store your regression equation in Y1. Then go to y equals. Your regression equation should be in Y1. In Y2, you're going to put 10 to the Y1, kind of like we did yesterday. And then second table set, and you want to look at how much she's got after 25 years. So you're going to set the table for 25, and then go to your table, second table, and look at year 25, what is the Y2 value, and that will be how much she has after 25 years. So you should get used to doing that, and then tell how much Fred had after 25 years, how much Alice had after 25 years, and explain who has more. In question 21, so I'm going to flip the page to how mold grows. It shows the hours and the mean or the average of the size of mold. L1 should be your hours, so 0, 3, 6, 9, all the way up to 36. And then L2 should be the mean. That's your last column over there. It wants you to graph those, part A. And then part B, or still in part A, so the graph of time versus the mean, that's just your L1 and L2. Then it wants you to go to L3, and again, before you do all this, you should clear out all your list and your y equals before you start a new problem. But then it wants you to go to L3 and do the log of L2, and to graph that one as well. Now you'll see the log graph, the L1 and L3 one, it is linear, but only at a certain part. So it looks like a line and then another line, and then you see something out there. What that's going to show you is in part B, it says there's actually 3 phases of this. So you can see in the beginning, the first 2 dots or so, looks like they're on a different phase. Then when you get to hour 6, the third dot, it looks like it's linear all the way up to hour 24. And then that last dot, which is hour 36, is kind of off to itself. So those are your 3 phases. Then in part C, It says the phase we want to look at is from 6 to 24, and that's the one that looked the most linear. So we're going to delete L1 and L2. We're going to delete 0 and 3, so the hours of 0 and 3, and delete their means. Then we're also going to delete the hour of 36 and its mean, and you're going to clear out L3, and you can recalculate the log of L2 there as well. And then in part C, you want to, so again, you want to, in L3, you want to do the log of L2, and then you want to do stat calc 8 and get that equation of L1 and L3. You want to go to y equals, in y2, you want to put 10 to the y1, and then you want to find, it says to predict what it looks like after 10 hours. So you go to second table set, started at 10, and then look for your y2 when you're at 10, and that'll tell you the mean at 10 hours. We go to number 27, so I got to flip the page. 27 asks you, when we go to 27 and 32, we're now not talking about exponential anymore, we're talking about linear regression. So in 27 it says the number of people living on American farms has declined steadily, so that means it's linear. Here's the data in millions of persons from 1935 to 1980. Part A wants you to make a scatter plot. So in L1 you're going to put the years. Make sure you clear everything out of your y equals, clear everything out of your list. In L1 you want to put the years, and in L2 the population, and then sketch that scatter plot. Also in part A it wants you to do the least squares regression line, so that's the prediction equation, which is y hat equals a plus bx. So after you put them in L1 and L2, you're going to do stat calc 8. Make sure you do of L1 and L2 this time, because that's what we're talking about, and write down that equation. In part B, how much did the farm population decline each year? That's your slope, or your B. So by how much did it decline each year? If you look at your slope, you can tell, and remember that's in millions of people. Okay, what percent of the observed variation is accounted for by the line? Remember, the percent accounted for by the line is your r squared. So if you need to go back to stat calc 8 and look at your r squared, it'll give you the percent explained by the line. And then part C, use the regression equation to predict the number of people in 1990. Basically, that's just plugging 1990 in for x, or you can go to second table set, type in 1990, and then go to second table and look at your y value. Now you should notice something in particular about this, and tell why this cannot be possible, and also if you can remember the word used for it, that'll be good. And we go to number 32. Number 32 are golf scores. So again, for part A, you're going to type in the round 1 golf scores in L1, the round 2 golf scores in L2, and sketch the scatter plot of those. You should also notice that most of them are kind of in a line except for one player of those 11 players. So circle the dot, which is the player that is way off, and if you can tell which player that is from your list, that's way away from the others. And then part B says here's the least squares regression line. Which one includes all the players and which one takes that player out? And then it says how can you tell? Well, if you already have them put in L1 and L2, you can go ahead and do stat calc 8 and tell which one had the player in it, then take the player out and tell which one didn't. You can also look at your r value and see what it does from one equation to the other, and your r squared. So what happens when you take that player out? How does the r value change? How does the r squared change? All those different things. So that takes you through the second night's homework in chapter 4. It's pretty much what your quiz is going to look like for chapter 4. We're going to do some more things on Monday before your test on Tuesday, but Monday's quiz, you've really got to be able to do all this. You got to be able to do L1 and L2. You've got to be able to do the log of L2 and L3. You've got to be able to do, remember we did residuals in L4 at a certain point. You've got to be able to put the equation for L1 and L3 in Y1, do 10 to the Y1 in Y2 to get your predictions. So basically just everything about exponential and linear regression. And tomorrow I'll give you a worksheet. I'll post that worksheet online and you'll have that. And so there'll be 4 assignments turned in for this snow break on Monday, and then also that online quiz has to be submitted as well. So hope you enjoy your break, and we'll see you back on Monday.